Hey, what is up, you guys? It's Dustin, and I'm back with another video. And in this video, I have commissioned Nick to react to something with me because I came across something, and it was because Mama Tot, she came across my feed. She was talking about this rabbit hole of this story that she fell down that was kind of like Risa Tisa and Who Did I Marry? But this person allegedly married a serial killer.
I never watched the Risa Tisa stuff. I did not. It was like 50 freaking parts.
It was a lot.
I couldn't get into it, so
it was enough to get her signed by the CCA. What was
good
it?
For her.
Or CCC or
some company.
Yeah, she got signed by somebody with some prestigious company.
Good for her.
But I know that this is blowing up, and I'm very good at finding things before they pop off. I'm usually a couple weeks ahead. I was ahead with the dental tech thing too. You've seen how that blew up, so I think this is the next big story, and you heard it here first. So in this video, me and Nick are going to be reacting to this TikTok series. I Married a Serial Killer. So if you guys are here for that, stay tuned to this video. So in my last video where I reacted to a few things, there were some audio issues. I'm going to make sure that I don't have any of that in this video because I don't want to have to film this again. So are you ready for this?
I am, but I got one of those anti-wrinkle straw things for my Stanley straw.
Can they even see it, girl?
People make fun of me because they say that it looks like fucking ridiculous when I drink. Do you guys see the shape of it?
It is kind of ridiculous.
I feel like it would be great if you just got some lip filler because you're not supposed to drink out of a straw, but does it look ridiculous? Hold on.
It's kind of ridiculous.
It's a little ridiculous? Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
So let's play this.
Story time about how I was married to a serial killer. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. I'm going to do this over several parts. But first, let's just talk about how we met. Okay, so I was friends with this girl in the 6th grade. And we wound up living 3 doors down from each other. So we got to be really close, and I'd go over to her house after school a lot. And her brother was in the Navy, and so he wasn't around that much, and he was a lot older than I was, but he was in the Navy, and he would come home on leave. And that's how I got to know him, and I kind of had a crush on him. He was her older brother and everything. When I was about 16, he started flirting with me and decided to ask me out, and
she didn't have no business with this man in the first place.
No, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what?
You didn't have no business with this man in the first place. It's always the creepy older brother that's in the army.
It is.
Honestly, that probably sounds like a really red flag, but my family, their biggest red flag was just the fact that he was a lot older than me, but they felt kind of comfortable because they already knew the family.
17 and 25.
Yeah,
that's
I think I would have a problem with my kid.
Look at his hard drive. Where is he now?
Oh. This guy?
Yeah, did he really kill someone?
Oh, girl, you have.
Oh, she didn't just think?
Oh, you have.
Oh, girl, I have not seen this.
I did.
I don't know. Wow.
Knew the family, and they could see how much we liked each other, so they supported it. Things moved really quickly, and before I knew it, he asked me to marry him. And honestly, that sounds crazy, except that my life was really chaotic at the time. So when he asked me to marry him, I just jumped on it because it was really the best thing I had going for me. So to answer a few of your guys' questions from my last video, yes, this is a true story about my life. And you guys definitely did your research. My ex-husband was Richard Ivanitz. I have.
Girl, when I tell you, I cannot
even Google him?
I cannot. Don't say what he did. We can't say what he did in this video. It's that bad.
We can't? Hold on.
No,
Richard.
It's seriously that bad.
Ivanitz? How do we spell his name?
Evonits or Z or something like that. It was when this. I was like, maybe he's a serial killer, and of course all serial killers are bad, but some are worse than others, and this guy's pretty bad.
Oh, yeah, the New York Post covered this, and it's a picture of that lady that's talking right now.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, see, I believe this. This is something that I would picture this man doing because she was 17 and he was 25.
Girl.
So this,
it's bad.
Okay.
I have written a book, and I'm looking for a publisher and agent. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep answering your questions, so stay tuned for part 2. Story time, how I was married to a serial killer, part 2. We got married in August of 1988, and we moved to Maine. And everything was fine.
Great year.
Oh, yeah.
August 1988.
Yeah, that was the day.
Great
the
year.
Month,
What?
the year that we got
Not
you.
the 31st, surely.
No.
It's not when they got married.
First, honestly, I was happy to be married, and I had this, it's probably pretty immature fantasy about what married life meant, but I was happy to be up there and with him, and he very quickly took charge and let me know what my responsibilities were supposed to be to him as a wife,
Cringe.
to clean.
Should have got out right then.
So cringe.
Should have got out right then.
Well, he was obviously one of those guys that was like a woman's place is in the kitchen.
Oh, probably.
Disgusting.
For sure.
The house and take care of all the cooking, and he was in the military, so there was like the lessons on how to properly launder his uniforms and do all of his creases just right, and I took all of this in. And
certainly the fuck not.
No.
You ain't gonna catch me creasing nothing.
Oh, you wouldn't crease my clothes?
Fuck no.
I wouldn't crease yours either. We're equal.
just worked really hard to please him, and I was happy to do that because I loved him and I was wanting to make him happy. Probably within the first month things began to shift. He started picking on me about my weight.
What makes you happy is a proper crease in your pants.
my
Like,
God.
wow.
Listen.
It's giving like F through a sheet vibes
Oh,
for sure.
I had gained about 10 pounds, and he started, telling me I was fat and that I needed to join Weight Watchers. If I cheated on my diet, he would tell me, you're going to wind up being fat like your mother, and
See,
you're
could not
just
be me. Or already could not be me, because if someone's throwing an insult at me, I'm throwing an insult right fucking back. And it's not going to be something that's on the same level as theirs. It's going to be something right for the jugular, and I'm going to make them cry.
that's way worse.
I'm not going to be nice about it.
You know what's crazy? Me and you have never really even argued like that.
No.
Not argued at all. Really. You better not ever.
Nah.
You better not ever.
We have like normal tiffs that people have in relationships, but it's not like
Yeah, I would
fucking
never call you
brawling.
fat. I wouldn't care if you were fat.
Oh.
I wouldn't.
you're just you can't do that. You need to get back on your program. I mean, up until this point, I felt
your
pretty good
program.
about things overall, but as time was going on, I was regretting my choice of getting married, but I had made a commitment, and I believed in.
You should always choose yourself. I wish, you know what? I can't even really sit here and criticize her actions because I too have done my own time.
I'm just sitting here thinking about Leanne Rimes' Commitment.
Oh, that is a great song.
Did you ever hear that song?
Yeah.
That was such a great song. Let us know in the comment section if you ever heard it. And if
They
you
have heard
haven't,
that.
give it a stream.
That's a great song.
Give it a stream.
But yeah, no, I can't even. I'm not even gonna judge her for this because I've made my own poor decisions in relationships, and being
Everyone
in them
has.
some more than others.
Some a lot more than others.
That commitment and in marriage, and that it's forever, and that you have to work on it. And I also, had a lot of people tell me that I was too young to get married at the time, and so I was.
Well, girl, you were groomed.
Wise, sound
You
advice.
were groomed. You were
Wise sound
17 and he was
advice.
25.
Yeah.
You were definitely too young to get married.
Pretty determined to prove everybody wrong that wasn't the case. Marriage was definitely not what I thought it would be. I'm going to go more into that in part 3 about how I was married to a serial killer. Part 3. Things started off kind of rocky.
And I think this is the one. It was either the last part or this one that Ophelia commented on, and she stitched it to make that part, and that's how I ended up finding this story. Mama Todd is into everything.
Was
girl.
it going viral before Mama Todd posted it?
Yeah, I believe it was. She just posted about it, I think, yesterday. This has been a story that's been breaking
This
the
I haven't
past week
seen.
and a half.
I have not seen this at all on
Girl.
TikTok, and I'm very surprised because I normally see stuff before you see stuff.
You do. He really does.
Especially in regards to Mama Todd. She's all over my feed.
Well, no, I watched the first part, and that's how I knew who the guy was and what he did. I don't know any of this stuff, so I've heard that it'll just blow you away. So
Okay.
Kind of rocky the first year, but by the summer of 1989, Mark was stationed in San Diego for shore duty, so we set out on a new adventure. At first, everything seemed really fun and romantic, getting settled in our new place, But pretty soon, things really shifted. He wanted me to get a job, but in order to get a job, I needed to be away from the house, and he needed me to be there when he got off of work. And he would get home from work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And unfortunately, a lot of the jobs that I could get, having no education, meant, other than a high school diploma, it meant, evenings and weekends.
So he's already isolated her, and he's basically controlling and dictating to her what she can and cannot do. I feel bad for her. I already have a suspicion on how I think this is going to go.
And he didn't want me to do that. And he didn't support me in going to get a college education, which is something I thought I would be doing. Eventually, he did allow me to go to cosmetology school. Since it was only a year, he was willing to...
Right?
Yes. Generous.
Allow me to be away from home so that I could get situated with a job that would pay me more money than minimum wage, and I could work regular hours. Going to cosmetology school really opened up my world and allowed me to get out of the house and make new friends. He didn't really like that very much, and he made it really...
She's still using that school, and she's got a little bit of pink in her hair.
Yeah.
On the side.
It sounds like she was dealing with a narcissist.
Yeah.
At least a sociopath.
Well, apparently a lot more.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
She's dealing with a lot.
But...
Good goddamn.
It really clear from the very beginning that I wasn't to talk to anybody about our problems. He would explain to me that married people talk to each other about their problems. They don't talk to other people about their problems. Of course, at this point, I was 18, and I'm out there and I don't have any friends. I don't have any family around, and it was back before cell phones, back before the internet or email or anything, and it was a long distance phone call that, kind of cost a lot of money back then, and he really limited the amount of...
Do you remember when phone calls cost like that? I remember my sister buying those cards you would scratch off. It looked like a Visa card, but it had all these numbers on it, and they were like $20.
Do you remember when you had to pay for your minutes?
Yes.
And people were like, call me back after 9. Yeah. And then it changed to 7. You could add it as a $5 feature.
I think it's so cool now that cell phone plans basically cover all of America, Canada, and Mexico. Back in the day, you would pay dearly.
Yeah, it's because they always could. They didn't want to.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Amount of money I was allowed to spend on phone calls to my family. Not having a lot of friends or anybody who I could talk to about my relationship, I really didn't know how different it was from the average marriage, and I really didn't have anybody to bounce things off of and find out what was normal, which I think was probably exactly what he wanted. At this point, though, I was still committed to my marriage, and I was still committed.
There's not a probably there, girl. That is a... Definitely.
Girl, this story sounds so familiar to me, probably because I've lived it myself. I don't like this. This is going to be triggering, I already know.
Committed to making it work, and most of the time things weren't really that bad, and I had a pretty good life out in San Diego. Then everything shifted again because he got out of the military, and I'll talk about that in part 4.
So what do you think? Let's predict. What do you think is going to happen? I want to know how she finds out he's a serial killer.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm really curious about as well. Did she find something?
It happens a lot. People don't know that their significant others are murderers.
Well, I would imagine they're not dating them and they get married and they're like, yeah, you know what?
I killed somebody one time.
He just wants to kill
buried
people
in the ditch in the
a
back.
little bit. It's fine. I'm just gonna go about my day. I'm sure that doesn't happen. So majority of people probably don't know.
Yeah, but how scary! Imagine being with somebody for years and then finding out that they're a serial killer.
Yeah,
that could have been you, sis. That could have been you, sis.
It could have. No. Oh my God.
That could have been me.
Story time. Being married to a serial killer, part 4. In November of 1992, Mark decided...
That was a great year.
The 90s were fucking amazing. Why?
November 1992.
1992? Why was that great?
I think I was in kindergarten then. I remember the 90s very well.
No, the 90s were great. Like, if you weren't alive during the 90s, like, you don't know what you're missing out on.
Yeah.
Great time to be alive.
Oh, my God.
I feel, like, very, like, blessed that I grew up in the time that I did.
Me too.
And I was a kid in the time that I was.
Do you want to know something crazy? I was literally thinking about this, like, earlier. Do you know that in the 90s, when people would talk about the 70s, that's the same as us talking about the 90s.
Yeah.
Is that, like...
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But, okay, even people that were adults during the 90s, like, would you agree that the 90s was just, like, a great time to be alive?
It was.
Like, let us know in the comments section.
It was an amazing time to be alive.
I remember it being great. But I'm sure that
like,
had a lot to do with the fact I was a kid and didn't have, like, a lot of responsibility.
You're green to everything as a kid. You don't know the chaos of the world, unfortunately. You find out when you get older, though. Don't rush growing up.
Yeah.
Mark decided to get out of the military. The transition of him getting out of the military was a little rocky. He started having a lot of mood switches, and one day he came home. He was really frantic. He was just very anxious and beside himself, and he came in the door and he asked me.
Probably
he
because he
said,
just murdered someone.
That's what I was about to say too. Do you think he just? Do you think this is him freaking out because he did something, or do you think he thinks he's about to get caught?
Or maybe he was
this
just
is
having the urge.
Well, no, maybe this
it was,
is
like,
the getting caught story.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe that's.
But no,
where
we're
she's
only
gonna
at part 4.
Girl, we don't know how she's telling her story yet.
Okay.
if I asked you to fly out of the country with me, would you do it?
Immediately no.
Immediately no.
Immediately
you know
no.
what? But I would say yes. And we go to the airport.
Yeah.
And I'd
then
get
go to the
fuck out of
police.
there. I would get the fuck out of there. I would say yes all the way to the door.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Like, I guess you have to say yes, right? Like, what do you do in that situation?
You would have to, like, in your head, you would have to know, like, something's off with this.
Girl,
like,
you better not ever ask me nothing like that.
Well, I don't like traveling.
You don't like leaving the house. I don't have to worry about that.
No, internationally. I fucking, especially now with the Boeings.
Oh, certainly.
With everything going on, I don't want to be over open water.
We're gonna do if we have to travel or go abroad, we're doing Airbus only.
Yeah,
from here on out.
It has to be an Airbus.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? What the hell? Why would you ask me that? He's like, just answer the question. Would you go with me if I needed to get out of the country, if I wanted to leave the country? And I said,
if
well,
you needed to get out of the country.
I would be like, that sounds like a PP. That sounds like a personal problem. You need to get out of the country, and I ain't gonna have nothing to do with that or you.
See, I would be asking
immediately
like,
no.
I'd be like, what'd you do?
I wouldn't.
I'd be asking questions probably.
I wouldn't.
I would like have to know.
No, like, girl, no.
well, I don't know. Why do you need to go? I don't know if I want to live out. And he shut me down and he said, no, if I needed to leave the country, would you go with me?
No.
And I says, well, I guess so. I mean, we're married. Like, why am I going to stay here? Of course I'm going to go with you. And as soon as I said that, he just like, he breathed a big sigh of relief and he's just like, oh, okay. He just kind of like went on about his day and he was just like, oh, I just had I was just really stressed out. I just had a really rough day and I just needed to know that you're like, no matter what, you'd be with me. So there were things like that eventually played into future things. Like looking back at that seems kind of crazy. But at the time,
it seemed crazy then.
It did.
It did. Like, how did she not see that?
But you got to also think, too, she's isolated alone. Mm-hmm. He's controlling her whole life. She can't do anything. She can't really think for herself.
But it still seems crazy.
It's very suspicious and weird.
It's still a little strange. I mean, he's asking, like, if we had to, like, flee the country real quick. That's crazy.
Now, if he felt that relieved after I said that, I'd been like, well, why?
I thought he was just really stressed out about work because it was a huge transition for him to get out of the military and, move to Virginia and start a new life and try to get a job. We decided on Virginia because he had family in Virginia. We decided that instead of going to South Carolina where he was from and where his mom and sisters lived with my cousin.
Girl, I hope this man is not from Myrtle Beach. I hope he's not from Myrtle Beach.
Dirty Myrtle.
I'm going to have to look now.
Is there anyone out there from Myrtle Beach? Like, would you call it Dirty Myrtle That's what you called it.
It is dirty Myrtle.
Well,
girl.
but why?
Because it's
I feel
dirty.
like people here say that about like New Smyrna Beach.
I've never been to New Smyrna Beach.
I think it's New Smyrna that they say that about.
I don't have anything to compare it to. I've been to St. Augustine, and I'll tell you what, Myrtle Beach ain't nothing like St. Augustine.
And people in the comment section are like, "It's not New Smyrna."
What is it?
No, it's Deltona.
Oh, Deltona.
It's Deltona,
I've been
I think.
to Daytona.
Is it Deltona?
Myrtle Beach is
I don't
kind of
know.
like Daytona, but there's nicer things
Daytona.
there. Myrtle Beach doesn't. It's been a while since I've been there, and I'm probably gonna get dragged in the comments. Well, they put a new store there or something. I haven't been
A new
there.
store.
Yeah, like one new store.
They put an IKEA.
Girl, the last time I was in Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Manor was the thing. If that tells you anything, I miss Myrtle Manor.
I never saw it.
Did you guys ever watch that?
I never saw Myrtle Manor.
I loved it. I had a like signed shirt from Becky. I rode
Oh.
on her golf cart with her.
You got the memorabilia.
I had.
I wonder if it's worth anything.
Hell no.
Cosmetology license, I couldn't do hair in South Carolina without doing more testing. Virginia had reciprocity with California, so it seemed like the perfect spot. And he really played it up and sold it to me that it was just going to be this really amazing place to be. I went along with it, even though my family had moved out to San Diego since we were there, and I didn't know any.
Came out after her.
Oh, so it sounds like he was doing this to keep her away from her family, because
so
if
they
she
followed.
was moved and isolated, then her family came out. He didn't want her family there.
Yeah.
Anybody in Virginia, and I would have rather gone back to South Carolina or even just stayed in San Diego because, my family had moved out there
San
while we
Diego
lived there.
is
So
really pretty. I've
I've
only
never
ever been
been.
there once.
I've never been. I would love to go.
I went to Legoland.
I've always heard Santa Barbara's really pretty, but I've heard
Yeah.
it's like old school.
So, like I said, November 1992, we headed off for our next stop in Virginia. More on that in part 5.
Girl, I wonder when she's gonna get into like the actual tea, because this buildup is killing me. She's
No,
like,
I want to
edging
know
me to
when he
death.
killed someone. Come on.
Girl, well, you already know what he did. You
No, I want to know when.
oh,
Like when in their
I don't know the
marriage.
time period. It had to be the early 90s, because remember she said they got together in like 88, 89.
Well, we're in 1992.
Oh yeah, we're in 92 now.
We have fast forwarded to 1992, everyone.
Story time, How I Was Married to a Serial Killer, Part 5. In November 1992, he got out of the Navy and we moved to Virginia to start a new life. Once we got there, that's when things really started to change. Start with, he was out of work for about 6 months and he was able to collect unemployment, and I was able to get a job as a hairstylist. But in the beginning, you don't really make any money as a hairstylist until you have a clientele, and so I was working, but I wasn't really making any money. So between the two of us, after rent and car payment and everything, we had about $25 a week left over for groceries, and so that meant...
Tell you what, in 1992, it probably got you further, a lot further than it does now.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
But I wonder what that would be for inflation. It's still probably more than... That's more than some people have left over today. Some people end up negative.
Yeah.
We spent several days a week, spending the evenings having dinner with his family, which honestly saved our lives. The other way things started changing was he fell into a bit of a depression, and his personality was different. He was always very like upbeat and fun and happy and telling jokes, but instead he was just he's more moody, and he started talking about how he wanted to smoke pot. It was definitely not something I had ever had.
Oh, the gateway drug. That's the gateway to the end of the world.
Demons took over.
The demon. Girl, there is like literally no benefit to drinking alcohol.
No.
But I don't even want to have that conversation. I was arguing with people over it on Twitter earlier.
Of alcohol?
I cannot stand when alcoholics judge people that
Yeah.
smoke weed like they're better.
Yeah.
You're not. Newsflash.
Yeah.
As a part of my life, and it wasn't something that I was interested in at all, but I guess it was something that he had.
Oh
I
my
wonder
God.
if she still lives by that.
Do you know what just popped into my head? Do you remember on Seventh Heaven when the mom was like, I have something to tell you?
I've smoked
I smoke pot.
That Seventh Heaven show, that was something.
Girl, and then the dad turned out to be a PDF file. Is that not... Did y'all know that?
You can't make this shit up.
I'm forever scarred about that. And
Hollywood, y'all.
And you want to know what's crazy? I was not like ever obsessed with the band Lost Prophets, but I liked a few of their songs and I would play them all the time. When I found out what happened with that band,
yeah,
you can't trust nobody.
A lot of sickos out there.
Weirdos.
Psychos is what my mother would have called them.
She would have.
He had done before the military, and now that he was out of the military and not being tested anymore, he just felt like, you know what, I'm going to do it, and you just have to deal with it. So up until that point, when he started talking about, when he got out of the military and he started talking about wanting to smoke weed again, his entire personality around drugs and alcohol was this clean, sober life. And it was something that was compatible with me. When he starts talking about wanting to smoke pot again, it was really just so beyond anything that...
Also, too, though, this was back like in the 90s, so there was a whole stigma attached to it. It was a lot different then.
Oh, that's when the street weed was really good.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Nowadays, you're going to get dirt.
Not so much, girl.
No.
What, you can't even trust the dispensaries in California now.
Apparently.
Remember what you told me yesterday?
A lot of pesticides. They did a study, and some of those brands out there have like a shit ton of pesticides
That's so
in there.
scary. Like, you can't
Stuff, yeah.
Can't even
That's crazy.
have fun anymore.
No.
I wanted around me, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it because we weren't supposed to share any of our problems with anybody. That was something that he continuously reinforced in me, that that I wasn't supposed to talk to anybody about what was going on in our relationship. And of course, looking back, I definitely feel like had I been able to reach out and talk to people, it would have probably have allowed me to move on a little bit faster than what I did, because that was definitely a red flag that he had no consideration for me and how I felt about having that in my house. He only smoked it around me this one time where he drove me around in our car.
Sitting here telling us just that he was smoking weed. Did he was it stopping him from killing people though, Charlene? What's her name? What is her name?
Bonnie.
Bonnie. Was it keeping him from murdering people? You probably should have just let him smoke the weed. She probably took the weed away from him and he got very upset about it. Triggered something in him. She took his stash.
I don't know how we ended up here or why this is such a big part of the story.
There's got to be something coming.
Do you think it's like a psychosis situation?
No,
he went into psychosis?
I think that he's probably already done what she's going to tell us that he's done.
And you think that that's his way of coping?
Because this is a serial killer. Mm-hmm. You have to kill more than 3 people to be a serial killer.
Really?
I think it's 3.
I thought it would be 2.
I think it's 3 or more. Is it? Should we Google it?
I don't know.
No, yeah.
I would think more than 1.
No, but I think it was I was gonna say if it's 2, it's oopsie, but if it's 3, it's. Hold on, now I want to know. It says a serial killer, also a serial murderer, is a person who murders 3 or more people, with the killings taking place over a significant period of time.
My paper was right.
He has already done.
You think so?
Yes, he's already guilty.
That's his coping mechanism.
And whenever he asked about that,
do you think he's gonna confess to her and she leaves?
No,
or
I
do you
think she's gonna find something.
You think?
It'd be better for the movie.
He wanted to go for a drive on these country roads and show me places he had been. He pulled out a joint that he had rolled up and lit it up, and I'm just sitting there completely.
Okay, driving and smoking is not good. We're against that completely 100%.
Driving and smoking on an old country road.
She should have offered to drive.
She should have just got out of the car.
She should. Yeah, I mean, she could have just got out of the car.
Yeah.
But you got to think too.
Smoke is too much for me.
She might not have had cell phones back then.
She had some legs.
That's true. But girl, you don't know where they're at. She's saying that they're out in the middle of nowhere.
Run.
To where? To whom do you think she's gonna run to?
I don't know. I would rather run and find the hoomst than stay in the car and get to the end of the old country road. That's for sure.
Got Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, that
Where'd you get those peepers?
You know that guy's a pedophile too.
Oh yeah,
the guy from Jeepers Creepers.
What? What is going on in the world today?
Yeah. I used to love that movie, and then I found that out, and I was like...
completely horrified, and, you know, he kept wanting me to try it. He's like, oh, come on, just try it. Like, you know, like, he really wanted...
There was something in that
That's stuff. What I was about to say. Do you think it's laced? Do you think he's going to,
But if he was smoking it, too...
Yeah, but he knows that she would be like out of her mind.
Tried to smoke it, but I couldn't quite figure it out because that's just, I don't know. That's just me. I don't know what to tell you about that. Again, these are the kind of things that happened, like looking back, you know, it's definitely puts things under a different frame, but certainly doesn't like lead me to think that he's out killing anybody. We weren't really doing very well financially, and so I decided that I was just gonna like do something else. And so I found a job waiting tables and was making pretty good money, and that really did help a lot financially because he still wasn't working. Then one day I was waiting tables on this.
She was funding this murderer's lifestyle.
Yeah, immediately no, girl. Do not, unless there's an explanation as to why your significant other is not working, do not support these men. Hell, don't support these women.
It goes both ways. Literally supporting a murderer.
And didn't even know it.
Wow.
Had no idea.
Wow.
Not a clue in the world.
Ain't that some shit?
That's something.
This really beautiful lady, she had like really beautiful hair color, and I commented on her hair color, and she said, oh, well, thank you, I'm a hairdresser. And I'm like, wow, so am I. She's like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, why aren't you doing hair? You shouldn't be waiting tables. She handed me a card and told me to go talk to her mom, and I was able to go find a job finally as a hairdresser in Virginia, and that changed things a lot.
So she's making friends.
Yeah.
He ain't gonna like that.
He's not.
He ain't gonna like that.
Oh my God, I hope it wasn't like the owner of the salon.
I don't think it was, girl. I hope it wasn't.
I hope not.
But I already know because this guy sounds like a complete narcissist. He does not like her networking. He does not like her making friends, and he wants her isolated so he can control everything that she consumes and does.
A lot. And he finally found a job, and things really started to stabilize, and we were going to be able to buy a house, which was just really just everything we were wanting. And I was hoping to be able to start a family and everything else.
Oh, please tell me you
hopefully she dodged that bullet.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully.
Literally.
Could you imagine? That would be awful. Imagine having kids with somebody and then finding out that they're a serial killer.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But as we were in the house buying process, things began to change. And I will get into that in part 6. How I was married to a serial killer, part 6. Okay, I want to back up here for...
I think she filmed this over a span of days. I think we're getting close to the end of it. I think there's like 2 more parts.
For just a minute. A lot of you guys have been asking whether or not I knew about his conviction in 1987.
Little art above, like there must be more on the wall that we're not seeing, because if it's just that little itty bitty thing, like with that big ass couch, oh my God.
My mom used to have paintings like this at our beach house when I was a kid. We should get some more. We should get some of those. Okay. I bet we could find them at like a Goodwill or something.
We could make that.
Oh,
you know what I've always wanted to try? No, we couldn't. Like, I would never even attempt to do something like that because it would not look as amazing.
It wouldn't,
apparently. But I've always wanted to do like those pictures that you see at Z Gallery, the ones that have like the glitter on them, and it's like just the painting like dripping.
Why don't you order one from Etsy? You can get it like with all the colors you want, and you can support an artist.
No, I want to make one. There's like YouTube videos of people DIYing it, and it actually looks good. It could be fun.
Do you remember when we did the epoxy resin?
Yeah.
You remember how that turned out?
It was fun.
It was fun, but it wouldn't harden because we lived in Las Vegas.
Yeah, but this is different. This is a painting.
Prior to us getting together. So what he had told me about it was that he had been blacked out drunk. I guess he had a really severe drinking problem, and he was driving around.
Girl, how do you guess? Like, I get people can hide murders and stuff, but I don't get how you can hide that you're alcoholic or drinking.
Some people are probably really good at it. There are.
Really?
I would imagine so.
Girl, I guess I grew up around so many drunks, I can pick it out of the lineup.
There's another one.
I don't know.
Jacksonville, Florida, blacked out drunk. And apparently driving around naked. And some girls had seen him. This landed him arrested and in a rehabilitation center for his drug and alcohol addiction. By the next year, when we were starting to see one another, he had embraced his sobriety.
Okay, so she was like sticking by her man, girl.
Yeah,
she was standing
through thick and thin.
For real. Like, I would have been done left his ass if he got like put in like a halfway house or prison or whatever for that.
Yeah.
And his alcohol and drug-free lifestyle. Honestly, at the time, I was impressed. I thought that it took a lot of courage to face his inner demons and deal with the things that were causing him to drink. Of course, at the time, I was only 17. Actually, I was 16 at the time.
Now we've gotten even fucking younger.
How?
So now she was 16? Wait a minute,
I don't like the way she's telling this story.
No, because I don't understand how we got from like the last part to this part.
I don't either.
Because they were on like an old country road smoking some pot, and then all of a sudden he's getting arrested in Jacksonville, Florida.
So I really didn't know the greater implications of addiction, or even what it meant to have an addiction.
Girl, you were with a pedophile.
Or why people are addicted, or I didn't know any of that. At the time, I just thought he was doing really well, and I was impressed, like I said. And I was not somebody who drank at the time. I was a teenager, and we also have to back up that this was the 80s, and the big campaign on just say no, and this is your brain on drugs, and all that kind of stuff. I was 100% on board with that, and this had been drilled into my head since, I was 13 years old. By the time we moved to Virginia, we had already been married for 4 years, and alcohol and drugs had never been a part of our relationship. So when he decided that he was going to start smoking pot and wanting me to do it, it was pretty alarming, because that was not something that I had planned on having in my life. And we have to remember, it was illegal then, and people were going to jail. And I didn't want to get in trouble for something that wasn't even part of my life, having something in my house.
That's fair.
That's fair. It is fair. I don't understand why we're hearing so much about this. Him smoking pot. It has to be something like building.
Psychosis?
It must be.
And not even having a choice about it put me at risk at also getting in trouble. I didn't find out the truth about his conviction until after I found out that he was a serial killer, back in 2002. That's when I found out that he had actually masturbated in front of a 3-year-old girl, I believe. Of course, that's a huge difference.
My God. Even worse than being married to a serial killer is being married to a pedophile. Holy shit.
That's
holy shit.
Foul.
Because
I didn't even see that part.
Being married to a pedophile would turn you into a murderer.
Yeah.
Because, there's only one proper punishment for people that are into kids, but they don't end up breathing after it happens.
And had I heard that, I definitely would have made a different decision about whether I wanted to be with this person. But at the time, all I knew was that alcohol had caused him to make a bad decision, that he had been drinking and he was blacked out and somehow took his clothes off and was driving around, and somebody just happened to see him. That's all I knew. And in my 60s.
Oh, so that time he was doing wasn't for him flashing people. It was for this, and he didn't tell her, and she was none the wiser because she didn't look into it.
Yep.
Wow. Ugh.
18-year-old brain, that made sense to me. More in part 7. How I was married to a serial killer, part 7. Okay, so I left off at the end of part 5 where we were getting ready to buy a house in Virginia, and it was around that time when everything shifted. Somewhere around that time, he began having what I tend to refer to as rages, where, you know, one minute we would just be sitting there having a normal conversation, and the next minute he's up shouting at me and cursing, and one time he punched a hole in the wall. He would always wind up being emotional afterwards and crying and apologetic, talking about his childhood and all the terrible things his dad had done to him, and he'd swear that he was going to get help and that he would call somebody in the morning, and the morning would come and it would be as if nothing had happened, and he would just be carrying on with his day, and we never heard anything else about it. I kind of chalked up a lot of it to stress. You know, we were getting ready we were building a house, he had changed jobs, and there were a lot of things that were up in the air at the time.
Relationship is what this is.
You think?
That's what she's doing.
It does kind of sound that way.
She's chalking it up to stress.
Well, you got to think too. She actually was young. Usually when you hear people use that argument, it's people like James Charles. They're like 21, 22 years old. She was actually a teenager. Mm. So, I mean, she was groomed by this man.
Oh,
so,
yes.
I mean, we can't really judge her for that. And that's also probably part of a trauma response too, because she was so young.
And in my mind, I thought, well, once we get into our house and begin getting settled in our life, that he'll settle down and he'll be happy, and that this would all just kind of wash over. So when we were in our house about 6 months and he flew into one of these rages, this was the third time it had happened. And the first time being maybe 6 months to a year before. It was like happening this was like the third time in 6 months, and it really shattered my bubble. It shattered this whole fantasy that I had. I was moving into my new house, and we were going to start a family, and I was meeting my neighbors, and we lived on a little cul-de-sac. It was like everything that anybody would ever want. But when this happened, it just shattered that bubble for me. And that's what made me start to question whether or not it was a good idea to try to bring a baby into this situation. Things felt really unstable to me, which made me feel kind of pretty unhappy. And he started to realize that I was unhappy and started to make demands of me to figure out what it was that I was going to do, if I was going to stay or if I was going to leave. I really didn't want to end my marriage. I just wanted to be happy, and I wanted stability, and everything that was happening made me feel really uneasy. So he agreed at first to go see a counselor, and we went to a couple of counseling appointments. I can't remember. I feel like I went on my own once. Maybe he went on his own once, and we went together. And when we went together, afterwards, he basically told me that he felt like the counselor was on my side and that she was biased, and that he wanted to find a different counselor, or he just wasn't even willing to go because he felt like, it was just really unfair and that she was against him. I didn't really know what to do at the time, but eventually I decided to leave. Everything came to a head.
It's taking a while.
Lord, I hope she tells us what it was.
I know.
I really hope that this is not a situation where she finds out, and she wasn't with him, because to me, it was made out.
Well, she found out in 2002.
Yeah, but the way it seemed to me with this is I thought that he was going to be caught and they were together, not he was her ex. I mean, it doesn't make it any better, but
I thought that because of the way that Mama talked about this, that this was going to be something like a lot bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a horrible, disgusting thing, like what he did, but the way the series is like put together and her talking about it, like, I feel like there's a lot of filler in here.
I feel like there was this much hype for it.
Yeah.
But this much is being delivered.
Yeah, I feel like there's certain... I still don't understand why the marijuana thing was like a big deal. Like why that... Because that took like 2 videos.
It did. It took up a lot. I don't know.
This one night when I had come home from a ballet class that I was taking, and the class ended at 9 o'clock, so I got home around 9:15, and I walked in the door. And when you walked into our house, there was like the entryway, and off the entryway was an office. He was sitting at the desk in the office, and he saw me walk by and immediately started berating me about, where have you been? What are you really doing? I know you're not taking a dance class. I know you're seeing somebody behind my back. Why don't you just tell me? You know you just want to leave. By this point, he had gotten up from behind the desk and was coming around and getting up in my face, continuing to yell at me about how I was lying to him and how he didn't believe me. When the phone rang, he decided to answer it while he was like in the middle of this fit he was beginning to have. As soon as he answered the phone, he flipped a switch. And he was like, "Hi, how are you? Gosh, it's so great to hear from you." And he walked right past me and went into the hallway and down into the basement to take the call. And it was at that time that I thought, I really need to get out of here right now, because that really freaked me out, that he shifted from really pissed off to super happy in just a snap. So I immediately grabbed my things. I already had my purse in my hand and my stuff, but I grabbed a couple more things and just slid right out the front door, got in my car, and I drove away. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I wound up calling a friend who let me stay at her house. And I actually stayed there, was able to talk to my family who were out in California at the time. And they encouraged me to come out there and stay with them for a little bit and try to figure things out. During that night, he was leaving messages on my cell phone, which sounded, he was really like upset, saying things like, don't come home, you don't have a home, you're like, just...
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
you have nothing to worry about.
No issues there.
Like, thank you.
It's always people like that that say, you're not going to find somebody like me. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
You've just ruined our entire marriage. We don't have a marriage anymore. Just kind of crazy things like that. And it was upsetting to me, but at the same time, certainly looking back, I think, shoot, I wonder, if I hadn't left, what would have happened that night. At the time, I just felt really uncomfortable and thought I needed to not be home. It was after that I decided that I was going to go to San Diego, where my brother lived, and stay with him for a little while and start, moving on to a different part of my life. A couple of days later, we wound up talking on the phone, and he agreed that he would be out of the house on the weekend, and I could come pack up my stuff so that I could leave. And that's what I did. I spent the weekend in my home for the last time, and I packed up my car with as many things as I could. And
did she say what year that was?
No, she didn't say what year.
And I hit the road for California. More in part 8. How I was married to...
Okay, this is the final part, I believe. There's no more after this.
Yeah, it says how I found out.
Oh, so this is the money shot. This is what we've been waiting on.
The Serial Killer, Part 8. So I left Virginia and I headed across the country to San Diego, where I stayed with my brother, who had moved there at the same time when Mark and I were living there before. While I was there, I met Scott, who's now my late husband, and there's more to that later. He lived in Northern California. So,
girl, could you imagine?
So I came up here and I met him. And we fell in love, we got married, and I had a couple of babies. And when my second kid was 3 months old, the FBI showed up at my door. I had been warned the day before from his cousin who had...
Okay, so it was a situation where she left and then found out after. I really did think going into this was going to be like he was actively doing this and she was going to find a body or something. The way this was like played up by Mama Ty. I feel kind of let down on this one.
Because you know what? It's just so many parts
it's
that
still
weren't
a horrible,
necessary.
It's still a horrible thing to happen.
But she kept people invested.
Huh?
She kept people invested. This video that we're on now, number 8, it said the comment from the person was like, I'm invested.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I'm invested, but I don't know.
I just want to know about the pot. Like, because I feel like we did not need to know that.
I might buy the book.
There's a book?
Yeah, no, I think she's trying, that's what she said in the beginning. She's trying to get this published. It's like
ma'am.
I hope that the book is better
please.
told.
Not everyone needs to be an author, okay? They don't.
I mean, I'm not saying that to be ugly.
Sell the rights to like a movie or something. We don't need a book. We got this. We don't need the book.
Well, let's see how she found out. Obviously, it's the FBI, but I wonder if it's going to be like, did he do this like while he was with her, or was it like something that took place after? Because there's some time gaps here, right?
Well, it sounds like it's...
Who had called me to tell me that the FBI was at her parents' place and asking questions. And she had basically just told me that they had given the FBI my information, knowing that I'd be happy to talk to them. And all she knew was something about a girl in a box and that he was on drugs and kind of deranged, and they were worried that maybe he was heading my way to California. The next morning, I'm in my living room with my kids, who are 3 months and 2 years old at the time, just going about our normal day, and the FBI showed up at the door, and the first thing they said was Richard was dead. And
praise God.
Yeah, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus, on this day under his eye. Praise be thy name.
Problem solved. Shit.
Kind of threw me back because Richard is his first name, but he went by Mark. So, like, it took me...
Safe to say he was a dick.
Yeah.
A minute to realize, like, who they were talking about. And then, let it sink in, the fact that he was dead. They came in and sat down, and they told me that Mark had kidnapped a 15-year-old girl in South Carolina. He had stolen his mom's car while she was on vacation with his wife in Disneyland, and he kidnapped her in broad daylight.
I guess so.
He had a new wife. Oh.
So this happened. This is something that happened after the fact. So maybe they were reaching out to her for like to corroborate a profile about him or something.
Oh my God.
Sicko.
And in her front yard, put a gun to her head and made her get into the back seat of his car where he had a plastic container, and he made her get into this plastic container. You
would just have to shoot me.
Yeah.
You would just have to shoot me, because there's no way that you would, like... I mean, everyone says they know what they would do in that kind of situation, but if someone's trying to put me into a plastic container that they're going to put a lid on and all that as they're putting a gun to my head, I'm not going to be thinking to myself, this is going to go a different way.
No, because I watch a lot of true crime stuff. Like, statistics show that if they get you away from where you're at, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Like, your life's over.
So, you're
going to have to do me right here.
I would start screaming, like, at least that's what I hope that I would do in the moment. I wouldn't, like...
Oh, no, I know. You'd fight back. You would fight back.
They'd be so annoyed with how much I would talk.
This is crazy.
You can hear all about her story, because she is probably the absolute most badass person I've ever heard of. She's amazing. She's a survivor. I just got a divorce. She has a movie and a podcast, and she got into law enforcement. And let me tell you, this girl is one badass because she escaped. She got out while he was sleeping, and she was able to direct the authorities back to his apartment, where they found newspaper clippings about unsolved murders in Virginia.
Now see?
Wow.
Now see, the girl that was getting put into that box is alive because she escaped.
Yeah.
See? I would have literally jumped the gun, and it would have gone differently for me.
Maybe. You never know. But that's how scary. That sounds so
No, that sounds
horrifying.
fucking terrifying. That poor lady.
Yeah, no. I want to know this. I want to know the movie now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. When they got back to his apartment, he had fled, and they caught up with him in Florida. There was a high-speed chase. They flattened out his tires, and he got out of the car, and he put a gun to his head, and he killed himself. They went on.
Pussy way out.
Well, no, I mean,
yeah, but there's no justice for those, like, people or anything.
Yeah.
Like, that's awful.
I should just...
Like, I personally believe that if somebody, like, murders your child, and obviously has to go through, like, the court system, all that kind of stuff, but I think that the family
Vigilante justice
should be allowed 5 minutes in a room with that person. Okay? Like, you know, you see those videos of, like, somebody who murdered someone's kid standing up there being, like, talked to by the judge, and, like, the parent will attack them. It's always nice to see that sometimes, like, the police officers that are right there kind of, like, take a second to kind of, like, jump in, but obviously they have to because everyone's watching. Eye for an eye.
Yeah, I agree.
He went on to tell me that before he had died, he had conversations with his sister in the car on the cell phone, and he had told her at that time that he had committed more crimes than he could remember. But since he killed himself before anybody could figure all that out, there's still to this day ongoing investigations into cold cases that they're trying to solve. The FBI was just so happy to find me alive and normal and having a normal life with my kids and my husband and my house, and they were just beyond thrilled to see that I had survived that situation. Of course, I had no idea I survived anything. All I did was leave kind of a messed up marriage, and this was all just beyond.
Seriously, talk about dodging a bullet.
Oh, for sure. Several.
But you know what? This story was kind of like, it's kind of drawn out, but it has a good ending. At least for her.
It has a good ending. I'm glad she's alive, and even more happy that the 15-year-old that was snatched up got away.
I hope she's going to tell us, like, the movie.
Beyond shocking news. They asked me if it would be okay to ask me a bunch of questions, really personal questions about my life with him. They viewed me as a way of profiling him and also a way of providing a timeline because I was married to him for 8.5 years. They explained to me that they found newspaper clippings about...
So 8.5 years, she said, was it 88 or 89 when they got together?
They got together in 88.
88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. So she would have left around 96, 97.
Some unsolved murders in Virginia, one of which happened before I left the marriage.
Oh, so he did?
It was in September, the year before I left, and at that time, I had gone to San Diego to visit my brother. They told me that that seemed to be the way that he operated, was that he was committing crimes when his wife was away. So the fact that I was able to show them that I was out of town showed that he had the opportunity to have committed that particular crime.
Oh, so he was doing it when he was with her.
You know, at least he let her travel.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I mean, he had to let her travel.
That is fucking like insane. That's like when somebody's like significant other goes out of town, and while they're out of town, the other person back home will start like accusing them of cheating and like, oh, you're a whore, like all that kind of fucking stuff. And then you find out that they like packed up the whole apartment to like get rid of like showing like your shit so they could have someone over there.
Yeah. Girl, that's why you got to have cameras.
Yeah.
The other two murders that were confirmed were after I had left the marriage. They were in May the following year. My conversations with the detectives and the FBI helped to confirm some facts that helped to prove that he had indeed been the one to murder all three of those girls. So like I said in my previous video, I just had, at the time that this all dropped at my door, I had two babies at home. I mean, I'm sitting there through these interviews with my baby on my lap and my toddler on the floor playing blocks. And
what the timeline was of when she was traveling to go see her brother in San Diego, and the time that he came home and was like, if we had to like leave, if I had to get out of the country, and was like freaking out about that. Was that after the trip?
Yeah.
That, like, what are they listening to? How is this going to affect them? My baby wanted to nurse, and I'm just trying to get through this interview. It was extremely stressful. It was very surreal. Didn't seem like, this seems like something that would happen, in the movies. It doesn't seem like real life. Like, this can't be happening to me. How could that be? I had a marriage. It was fucked up, and I left it and moved forward, found something new, healed that part of my life, and then I just find out that this wasn't anything I had even it was nothing that I thought it was. Entire marriage was a lie. So that made me really look back at everything with an entirely different lens than what I had previously. And I'll go into more in part 9.
And there is no part 9.
There's no part 9?
No. So we're caught up. So maybe she's going to spill some tea, because you know what? She's probably going to go back and look at like notes and stuff, because she might have had a journal, girl. We don't know all the tea. She's probably going to give us some specifics, and I'm going to update you guys if we get it, because I am invested in this story. It just took a long time.
Maybe she's going to like bring up like what murders it could be.
Yeah.
And she's going to like expose that, because if they haven't been solved, like some of these things, maybe people can put like things together.
Yeah, that would be cool to look into.
Her story was so long and drawn out. I'm just going to be completely honest.
Yeah,
I feel like there were a few parts of it that we could have gone without. I think, you know what? I feel like she could have brought up certain things, but not spent a whole video talking about them. Mm-hmm. Like, she could have said, like, he was just trying to push, like, drugs on me, and I didn't want to do that because of this reason, and she could have gone on.
Yeah.
But she could have just said that he did it, like, numerous times.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that she made it out.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad that 15-year-old made it out.
Yeah. But I want to know what you guys think about this. I think this is a wild story. If there's updates, if there's a part 9, if you guys want it, let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing.
Don't consider, do it.
Yeah, just do
fuck?
it. Yeah.
Could you imagine?
And if you made it this far in the video, leave me the frog emoji, because we never use the frog emoji.
Ribbit.
Like, ever. But with that said, I hope you all have an amazing day, and we will see you all in my next video.
Bye.
Bye, guys.